Our next speaker was going to be Eleni from the Secretary General of CPMR, but unfortunately she cannot be here. So once again we have to do it with a substitute. And I would like to hand the floor to the main taxpayer in the Outer Hebrides,
Yes.
Jean-Didier Hache. Jean-Didier.
Thank you very much, Angus. I will tell you about the taxes in the Hebrides another time, but this is not the topic today. Well, thanks very much for inviting CPMR to this meeting. It's many things to be said, and I will try to focus on providing you with the general political framework in which the islands are operating at the moment. We got to look at things in the long term, in the medium term, in the short term. Long term, it has been mentioned by other speakers, is the issue of global warming, of increase in CO2 emission. And if we believe what we are reading in the press lately, well, we are talking of the risk of temperature increase of not just 2 degrees centigrade by the end of the century, but up to 4 or even 6 degrees centigrade by the end of the century. No, the islands are not the only one to be on the front line, but it's clear that they are extremely exposed. Your own region, Angus, has known the dramatic impact of extreme climatic event. The island of Greece, if there is a temperature rise, will have extremely severe problem in water, in maintaining population, in developing tourism anymore. So we are talking of really very serious consequence in the long term, which should be, of course, a key element in our motivation to try to do something on energy issues. Medium term, well, it's how to achieve the 2020 objective and what contribution can the islands bring to meeting this objective. I was extremely happy to hear the speaker from the Commission saying that the islands had managed to, I mean, if they reach the goal which they have accepted, they have managed to do fairly well by going above and beyond the EU targets for a fairly limited financial input. So it's rather good news to hear that we are contributing positively to the broad effort for 2020. And then there is a short term. The short term, it's the nitty-gritty of politics. It's the negotiations on what's going to happen to our pact and what's going to happen to cohesion policy and what's going to happen to the EU budget. This is not an easy moment. It's at very difficult circumstances. And we must realize that when we look at this time scale, that things are not necessarily moving at the same speed. For example, political negotiation, one day they are slow, the next day it's everything goes, everything has got to be decided, and you got negotiation ending at 3 o'clock in the morning. The same thing goes with technologies. Sometimes you have new opportunities for our territories, which seem to be an opportunity, and the next moment they become a difficulty. I give you one example. We are all extremely keen to see the development of marine offshore technologies, but if you produce electricity at sea, you got to send it. If you got to send it, you got to use cable. If you got to use cable, you got to use copper. And if the price of copper goes rocketing, projects which were financially viable 1 minute suddenly cease to be so viable the next one. And we can also say with different technologies that sometimes we are on still very uncertain ground. I am dealing at CPMR with the issue of marine technologies. When you look at wave power, there is dozens of different technologies, and nobody knows exactly which one is going to be the best. So where should you put your money? Where should you invest? So you can see we are trying to have short-term, medium-term, long-term goals with very fluctuating circumstances. The one guideline which we have, of course, with the CPMR is to try to remind people that the islands are different and that they should receive specific consideration and specific treatment. So This is very simple. We have to repeat and repeat and repeat again that what makes an island different is really the combination between isolation and limitations of size. Limitation of size for size of population, geographical space, sometimes limitation of resources, and limitation of market. The representative from Sardinia was mentioning the issue of gas supply to Sardinia. It's an interesting story that even in an island of 1.5 million people, that is a big island, you had problem because the market for distribution of gas in bottle was controlled by a group of small suppliers who were really controlling the market and applying absolutely extortionate price to the island, and there was a need to go to Court of Justice to try to break this monopoly. So you can see we are in territories which do not meet the usual standards or usual criteria for the EU market of 500 million EU citizens. We are in markets apart, in situation apart. And that has got to be recalled and recalled constantly at all levels. What we are trying to do at the moment in the ongoing negotiation on cohesion policy is to make the EU institution aware that you've got to treat the islands differently, both in terms of funding, because when you do things in islands, they tend to be more expensive. Roads are more expensive, harbor are more expensive, computer technology is more expensive to supply, etc., etc. And that has got to be taken account in the way funds are being allocated. It is easy to say that, it is not easy to implement. And the other thing is what we need is some flexibility in the implementation of EU rules. So the present situation at EU level is that we had proposal for the future cohesion policy by the European Commission, which honestly were not paying much attention to the issue of territories like islands, mountain, or sparsely populated areas. So we had to lobby. We lobbied the European Parliament, and I must here thank very much the member of European Parliament from the Regional Development Committee, because we had a fair number of very important amendments which were approved by that committee. And of course, we are now trying to lobby at the Council level. And this is a very difficult task because, as you are all well aware, there are strong pressure by a number of member states to diminish the EU budget and to cut the funding available for various policies, including policies like Connecting Europe, which affect energy, and including, of course, regional development, which, of course, affect energy. For your information, we were in Cyprus a few days ago at the beginning of the month, and we were lucky to be invited by the Cyprus presidency of the EU to all the islands regions annual conference. And we were able to deliver the very next day a message to the European Council of Ministers on cohesion policy. And that message was fairly well received, and I'm pleased to say that at the end of the Council meeting, in the conclusion of that meeting, a reference was made, which I read to you, which said, when it comes to territorial dimension, well, it says territorial dimension and the integrated approach are major assets of cohesion policy. It is necessary to address the specific territorial challenge of each region to unlock its development potential. And the Council added, bearing in mind where relevant the consequence of permanent and severe geographical and demographic handicaps such as insularity. So this is a rather important step forward. I wish the very same proposal could be adopted tomorrow by the EU Council of Ministers on budget. That would be good news. But, you know, it's a first step, and we must be happy about that. So there, again, we have people who can be prepared to listen to us. Will they be able to put their hand in their pocket to the same effect? It's another story. But we are lobbying hard. We are lobbying the Council. We are lobbying the Parliament. And this lobbying on the future cohesion policy, we hope, will be able to provide enough means for projects such as ILPACT. It is important, I would add, to regard the initiative ILPAC as a specific initiative. And we understand there were discussions in the recent past with the proposal to integrate ILPAC in the Convener of Mayor initiative. I welcome my next-door neighbor on these issues. No, there is no doubt that there are synergies possible in certain areas. Islands are also rural areas. They are also, for some of them, urban areas. They are also coastal areas, etc., etc. But they are fundamentally islands, and this is the first and foremost characteristic. So this is the point which we rose by a letter by your president, who is the president of Sardinia, Mr. Capellacci, who wrote to President Barroso, and in his letter, I don't know if you have read it all, but just in case, I'll just give you extracts. He mentioned, we strongly believe that the Pact of Island initiative should remain distinct from the Covenant of Mayors. The Pact of Island process will be facilitated by the Islands Commission of the CPMR, that is already part of the initiative and institutionally, it's difficult, in the right position. The specificities of islands whose economic structure suffer from structural handicaps such as unemployment rates higher than other regions, polluting isolated energy system and fragile ecosystem require specific territorial governance schemes as well as an approach that is different from the one used in the cities and large urban areas of continental Europe. To this letter, we received a reply by President Barroso, and there again I only quoting extracts, where it was acknowledged that the Pact of Island is distinct from the Covenant of Mayors. This is an important point. Of course, the President of the Commission rightly recalled, there are parallel initiatives, but based on similar objective. And then he goes on to explain these objectives. And President Barroso adds, these similarities should encourage both initiatives to seek ways of collaborating more closely in the implementation of their shared goal and the development of operational synergies. It is important also in the interest of the most efficient use of available resources not to exclude options that suppose both initiatives jointly while retaining the full regard to the specificities of both and without prejudice to any support specific to either of them. So I think it is quite a clear message. It will be interesting, of course, to see how it can be implemented in practice, but I think it's important to see that the specificities of the islands are acknowledged in this letter. In conclusion, I would like to say that at CPMR, we are having this ongoing battle for the future of the EU budget, for the future of EU cohesion policy. We will try our very best to support ILPAC, and of course, last but not least, we will keep encouraging all members to join this initiative. I'm very pleased to hear there are 60 members at regional 65. Yes, I could lip read panels. But there are still many more, and we need to fight to get them on board, and we will try to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean-Didier, for